Welcome back, Sainers. Jayden here with another week of our OPPO view as we look forward to gather around this weekend back in Adelaide for the round 4 fixtures. We take on the Richmond Tigers, which should be a really good game. They had a really good win last week against the Swans, and I'm going to dissect a little bit of how they went about it, and then talk about. I did have a lot planned regarding Lynch and Bolter and Baker. I think they're 3 really big players for them. And then being out sort of changes my perspective a little bit. So we'll dissect how we can go about it, what we need to improve on from last week, and how we can get the chocolates and bring home the 4 points. So as I said from the start, they had a really, really strong win against the Sydney Swans. And they've got a list capable of upsetting the big teams. Now, from a whole season perspective, they're probably not going to finish, above 10th, or maybe even a bit lower than that, maybe 12th. But they still have the capabilities. They've got a lot of X factor potential. And when it all clicks for them, then they'll look at, bringing some big upsets, against the Swans. Look, they're capable of beating maybe a Geelong or even like a Carlton, those sort of teams, especially if Lynch and Bolter were firing as they were. But how they went about it at the MCG against the Swans, very contested. They like the ball in and under. They like to be able to get those centre clearances. They like to be able to move the ball forward nice and sort of fluently and smoothly. But they're also not hesitant in just slowing the game down and building from the back. They've got some really good ball users off the half-back line. Rioli, Short, and Vlosten. And even if you want to include like Bolton when he starts to work back, he's more of a forward player, but sometimes he'll push back as well. So they've got some really slick ball movers that are happy to go around the boundary up until sort of that halfway, and then once they cross that centre, they look to attack through the middle and get some really good scoring opportunities inside the V. For those, inside the V, inside that little zone, they're not kicking goals from the boundary. They're just sticking, nice right in front, and making the most of their opportunities. Something that we struggled to do last week, which is quite frustrating from the supporter base. Sorry. As I mentioned, Lynch and Bolter, I had a lot of sort of ideas of what we can do to stop them. Looks like it's already happened. And unfortunately for them, they won't be playing for quite some time with some injuries. But I still think the mentality stays the same. We've lost a little bit of our identity in terms of rebounding the ball from defensive 50 and using that like slingshot attack. And that only starts from intercepts and turnovers. Now, Richmond is a high turnover team. They're not afraid to use the ball by foot and, risk versus reward. But a lot of the times they rank number 1 in turnovers in the competition so far this year. And I think we're number 10. Number 7. So that works into how we want to play. We want to create turnover, use our speed, use our width. You've got Hill, Higgins, Butler. I thought Hasty, even though he only played for a quarter, looked really good last week. So I think there's still potential there for us to actually win the game with our leg speed. Darcy Wilson had a little bit of an off game, so might be a little bit of a watch there. But we've got the endurance and the athleticism to be able to beat them on the outside and then really get the scoring opportunities flowing. We definitely missed Max King last week in regards to just that high flyer, that contested markability, as well as, I think he's probably one of our better set shots this year as well. So look for that to turn around. Another area that I think we will struggle with, and I think it's been a continual sort of play on each week, is our midfield. I think there's some real concerns with how we're going about winning, not necessarily clearances in general, but particularly the centre clearances. Richmond ranks 7, which is about average for the league. We rank 17th so far in the first 3-4 weeks of the competition. So that is an area that we really need to hone in on. The likes of Hopper, Taranto, Jack Ross, who I think's not a star player, but he's a very good role player for them. The work's cut out for Steele, for Ross, and those likes in our midfield to be able to beat them and beat them to a point where we will get that scoreboard pressure and really turn the Jets on for our forward line. Player I want to sort of look at, and I think majority of Saints fans will be concerned, is Shea Bolton. I think he's the prototype X factor that every team's looking for at the moment. He's got the slick skills. He's got the IQ to sort of turn it on when he needs to, but also hold it back. And he can be really damaging in the forward 50 as well. He's got the capabilities to score 3, 4, even 5 goals at times. And especially with the way that I think our small defenders are defending, it's a real opportunity for him to take us to the sword. So I'd like to see a lot of work put into him. And I'm happy to give Stocker that responsibility. I thought Stocker had a pretty ordinary game last week. I know he took a great mark, but from a one-on-one perspective, there was a few times where I think he got caught out. So hopefully he's looking to bounce back and get a really good response from himself. And what better way to do that than take on, one of the best, X factors in the game in Shea Bolton. Another player that I really think we need to put work into, and probably a partnership here, is Vlastuin and Short. Vlastuin had an absolute stellar game against the Swans. He's been good all year. Rangers elite for intercepts, meters gains, and rebound 50s. And as I said, that's something that, we're looking to work on, because if we can pressure that and make them turn the ball over as they're coming out of their defensive 50, then that's going to give us absolute golden chances to be able to hit the scoreboard. So Vlastuin and Short, 2 players that I think a lot of work needs to go into. Happy for Butler to take one of them. He looked a little bit jittery coming back for his first game last week, which is normal. So again, put a little bit more responsibility on some of our older players to say, look, this is your man. Yeah, we want you to hit the scoreboard, but try and impact them and take away any sort of ascendancies that they can grab and lift their team. So big emphasis on that as well. And then the last thing or 2 sort of things in general that happened with the Swans last week for the Tigers was the ability to bring the ball to ground. They never got outmarked. The likes of McCartan, Blakey, Rampy, those, mid to tall half backs that the Swans had weren't allowed to intercept the ball. And they weren't allowed to then create opportunities going forward. So at a minimum, and I know Lynch and Bolter are 2 very big outs, but if they bring in Naismith and or Kaczynski, their role will be not obviously to hopefully mark it, but if they can't, to bring the ball to ground, allow the likes of Ross, Rioli, Bolton, those type of players front and centre to be able to crumb the ball and then, hit the scoreboard that way. So that's a real emphasis that our defence will need to work on. And look to try and minimise and try and get our intercept game back up. I think we've lost a little bit of that interceptability, whether that's through lack of personnel or just some defensive shifts that we've tried to do this year. But I think this year we're ranking number 10 for rebound 50s, which is a little bit lower than what I thought or that I'd hoped for. But the Tigers rank number 1, so a real clear discrepancy there that we'll definitely need to work on. And then lastly, perfect. Sorry, I was just reading my notes there. So lastly, they do like to make their opposition play through the wings, which I think suits us. Using the outsides, using Hill, using Wilson, using, Hasty, those sort of players that can use their leg speed. I thought against Essendon, we were able to identify and really use our pace on the outsides. We just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. And that's the difference between losing a game by 4 points and winning a game at 3/4 time and then having the last quarter just to sort of chill out a little bit and relax. So some really key points there. Look for Max King to come back. They will try and put probably Grimes on King, which I think is a bad matchup for them. So look for King to absolutely dominate. And then depending on who goes forward for them, I think they'll bring in Naismith. So I think putting Cordy on Naismith will be a really good opportunity. I think Cordy's done a fantastic job so far this year in terms of a one-on-one performance. And then that'll allow Wilkie to sort of float around and be that intercept defender as he likes to do. So pretty much key takeaway here is let's win the midfield. We've had a really poor start to the season with our centre clearances, so let's dominate that aspect, get the ball growing, get into our forward line, and let's hit the scoreboard. And we should be coming away with the chocolates. I think we've got a list that's good enough. We really respond well when we have a bad game. We did last year, we did so far after Geelong's with Collingwood, so look for the same, and hopefully we can get the chocolates in gather round. We are playing at Norwood on Sunday, so that'll be an interesting sort of aspect, a little bit of a smaller ground through the SANFL team, but it'll be nice to see if all the Saints can get down there. We'll be there, Saints TV, to hopefully cheer on the Saints for another win. So go Saints!